Hello, this is Dale with the NT Zone. Welcome to my channel again. So, when you take a test, say you take the MBTI, the 16 personalities, the several Enneagram tests, sociotype, and other socionics tests, you get a particular result. Sometimes you will say, oh, that fits me very well. But then you might look at another one and you're like, okay, that kind of fits me too. Then at other times, you get this result and it baffles you because it doesn't even sound like anything about you. Well, be me a few years ago. I took the MBTI, the official one. My result was INTJ. That's actually pretty close, but not really when you actually look at the functions. The NITEFISE. No, that didn't really click with me for a few reasons. I'm not going to get into that here. I should do a video about why I'm an INTP in the future. I think that'd be good. But basically, there are reasons why you might not relate to your particular type, and I would like to get into that here. So, one, the most obvious, let's just get that out of the way, the fact of stereotypes. Now, some of the stereotypes don't even make sense when you actually read Jung. Like, for example, the INTP and the ENTJ. So the ENTJ is thought of as commander. He's like, or she. Yeah, I think it was a female in the 16 personalities. Points that little stick at a map and says, "You do this, you do that." Okay, so did you know that um, extroverted thinking is associated with scientific thought? No, this idea. If you are someone who's comfortable with talking about science, going by fact to fact, you're a little bit tough-minded, not necessarily a tough person, but still tough-minded. This is what the facts say. I'm going to go with what the facts say. Screw my feelings, uh, and so on. That is a clear indicator that you are an extroverted thinker. Very strongly. Doesn't matter if it's in the auxiliary or in the dominant. But you also have the TI associated with science. Yes, there are scientific introverted thinkers. Albert Einstein, for example, comes to mind. But no, introverted thinking actually is closer to philosophical thought. Um, when you read Aristotle's Oraganon or some nominalist writing about logic, you will see how things relate, how we speak about things, and then even a good example is Immanuel Kant, how things relate through the ego. It reflects, and then I think I reflect. I think I reflect from the external objects of knowledge are not so much important to the introverted thinker. What's important is what can be thought of it, what can be said of it, which connects to a logical system. And some even talk about it mathematically. Yes, you could say that there's a lot of introverted thinkers who are mathematics types of people, engineers, so on, but it's primarily philosophical or mechanical. So there are different types of introverted thinking. I will talk about that on a different video, just like I will talk about the different types of extroverted thinking, the different types of uh, introverted and extroverted feeling, the different types of uh, introverted intuition, different types of extroverted sensation, which will be easier because the difference, I can say right off, is the functions that cause us to think about things, feeling and thinking, are what we call deliberative, or it's a type of thinking or a function that allows us to make the decisions to say why I believe a certain way or how I know a certain thing. Um, my values, my critical judgments on matters, and so on and so on and so on. Now, everyone has this stuff, by the way, so don't be alarmed if it sounds like I'm saying that people who are thinkers can only use critical judgments, which is not true, or feelers can only use value judgment. Again, not true. I actually did a video on the value judgments, a while back. You can watch it. But what I am saying is these are reasons why you might not understand, like, connect to your type. So we already went through the stereotypes. They're clearly wrong. For the most part, you have the other idea. So there's a guy named Biba. I'm not sure how you pronounce his name. Some people say Beebs. He is responsible for the usual system of cognitive dynamics, which I would like to address and criticize in a future video to a point where I can overthrow it with what I believe is a more sound system. So basically, you have your superior, auxiliary, tertiary, inferior. Okay, well, that's pretty good, right? Well, now you have your shadow functions, which was like the critic and the nemesis, the demon, and so on and so on and so on. So the problem with this, of course, if you read Jung, he talks about the shadow, but he talks about it more in the sense that it's basically things you see in others that you hate that's actually true of you. Now, this shadow is more of a morality thing. It's a psychological component, nonetheless, but still, it's there. But you can't really type it. You can't say someone has shadow TE, shadow NI, shadow SE, whatever. No. If you do that, you're basically forcing people into boxes in the most human, all to human elements of them. The parts of them where, well, I'm not a perfect person. Don't mind me. So, I would have to say that's another element of why you might not identify with your type. It's because you, in the most hypocritical part of you, the most human part of you, thinks things other than what the type says. And that itself is quite a problem. Now, four sides of the mind idea. Okay, so people who say this stuff, they're well-meaning. But basically, you take a type, you go read from the superior to the inferior, then you read the inferior to the superior, then you go to these shadow functions of the guy who I just talked about. You read from the nemesis to demon, demon to nemesis, and you see four different types. Well, that doesn't really mean anything. Yes, you could say that there are four different personalities. That's more of a description of what we would call quadra. It's not really, in any sense, okay, you have these four quadrats these four personalities that are relevant to you based off of your type. Yes, no, yes, no. What you're doing is you are kind of obscuring the whole entire idea. And so it's not really helpful to anyone. Okay, now the next one, and this is the last one, okay, is with people. You have to understand that there's a intense psychological component. So when you have for example, I know of a ENFJ and an INFJ. Both of them don't really associate clearly and concisely with the four letters because, yes, they are that essentially. They are, like, for example, the introverted intuitive dominant and so on. And yes, they do have TI, SE, and so on, but not precisely in that order. So, how does the typology community put it? ENFJ with high SE, or INFJ with high TI. That's not necessary, no. In fact, personality database, I kind of dislike them. I've mentioned how much I dislike them in other videos. The truth is they actually have this classical script, which they say is classical Jungian script, to try to honor the ideas of Carl Jung. So what would happen is, I'll give you an example of my type. So IT in parentheses, N. So introverted intuitive, or introverted thinking with extroverted intuition. But the N is there not as NI or NE because it could be possible to say introverted thinking with introverted intuition auxiliary. Or let's say my friends, the EFS would be what I would call my ENFJ friend because of his high SE. Or INT for my INFJ friend. By the way, she was the person who I typed using the Keirsey temperament disorder. You can watch that. It's in the videos on my channel. And the truth is that you will see that this kind of helps navigate through these prompts. Now, people might object, that's their attitude. Like, it doesn't make sense to have two introverted attitudes or two extroverted attitudes, whatever. No, there's no such rules pointed out in Jung. To my understanding, the only thing you could have is like introverted thinking with some type of feeling function, or introverted intuition with some type of sensing function, because those are radically opposited. Whereas with this idea, we're just having two deliberate, or one deliberate, one perceptive function, and saying you're this type. This would actually fit better. No, I'm not giving into the objective personality crowd. I actually think that they do have some errors which have to be addressed. No, I'm just saying what it, to me, seems to be from Jung, which would help you understand why your type is. And so I would have to say, like, comment, subscribe, share this video, get the message out. In the future, I will actually be doing very long videos where I will give lectures about my findings of the full Jungian system. Please be subscribed and keep watching. You will see them. And I will link you to my Facebook group. I will add you to my chat on Facebook. And we will actually be doing meets on Facebook. And it'll be fine. It will be fantastic. Thank you again.